Okay, so we're jumping straight into something, well, pretty intense and really relevant today. We're
Absolutely.
looking at why these huge systems, governments, corporations, even healthcare, why they seem to be breaking down all over the globe.
And you see it everywhere.
You really do. We've all seen the headlines about these massive corruption investigations, like the Zondo or Matlanga commissions in South Africa.
Huge institutional rot being exposed.
Exactly. But it's also just the chronic failure of basic services, maybe even right where you live.
And that's the thing. The research we've been looking at argues that these failures, as shocking as they are, they're just the symptoms.
Just the most visible part.
Right. They're like the cracks you see in the wall, but the actual foundation has been corroding for a long, long time.
And that's our mission for this deep dive. We're not just going to look at what failed, the stolen money, the bad policy.
You've heard that story before.
We have. We're unpacking a much more controversial argument.
Yeah.
The idea that any external system collapse, whether it's a whole country or a single company, always, and I mean always,
Traces back.
it traces back to a deeper internal failure inside the people who are running it.
And the core concept here is that society isn't some abstract machine. It's not this separate thing.
Right.
It actually functions as a collective mirror. I mean, it's a huge scaled-up reflection of the inner worlds of its citizens, and critically, its leaders.
So what you see on the outside.
Is a direct picture of what's happening on the inside, just magnified. Chaos and corruption out there means compromised systems in here.
Okay, let's start with that diagnosis then. It's hard to ignore this universal pattern of failure.
Yeah.
We see hospitals that can't provide basic care.
Educational systems that aren't actually educating.
Law enforcement totally compromised by bribery. It's everywhere.
And the key thing to grasp is the chain of causation. These breakdowns are not random. They are the final domino to fall.
The end result of something else.
Exactly. The sources use this really powerful analogy of a collapsed bridge.
Okay.
The tragedy is, of course, the bridge fell, the structural failure. But that failure is just the symptom of, say, compromised engineering standards.
Which is then a symptom of something else.
Right. Institutional corruption. Maybe a contractor cut corners or an installer was paid off.
And this is where it gets personal. That corruption, that bribe, that's not an institutional act.
No, that is the direct result of an individual or multiple individuals whose own moral and character systems have failed.
It always comes back to the person.
It always leads back to what the sources call the architecture of the human heart. The rot didn't start in the halls of government.
It started somewhere smaller.
Much smaller. It began years before in quiet, private compromises, little ethical lapses, moments where self-interest won out over duty. That's the origin point.
So if the problem is that deep, if it's rooted in a compromised internal nature, then a simple policy fix just won't cut it.
It can't.
The solution has to be way more fundamental. It has to be transformative. And this leads us to how the sources redefine redemption.
Which is a word we've sort of watered down.
Completely. They argue we've turned it into a ceremony, a ritual, and stripped it of its power to change how someone lives Monday to Friday.
Yeah, when transformation is just a box you check on Sunday, it loses all power to actually govern your choices on Monday morning. It becomes an identity marker, not an operating system.
So if it's not just a ritual, what's the functional definition? What does real change actually mean here?
It means the realignment of a corrupted human nature back to its original design specification.
Okay, break that down.
Think of it like a computer riddled with malware. You don't just delete a few bad files. You restore the core code so the machine functions perfectly, exactly as it was intended to.
In everything.
In everything. In business, in family, in ethics, in telling the truth.
That distinction feels critical. The difference between having your eternal destination sorted out versus having your daily decision-making process completely rewired.
That's it. And we see the disconnect all the time. People who claim one set of values but are totally compromised in the marketplace. They've adopted an identity, but they've rejected the operating system that comes with it.
So what does a genuinely transformed person look like systemically?
They operate from internal conviction. They're a person who, frankly, cannot be bought.
Why not?
Because their security isn't tied to money, and they can't be manipulated because their identity isn't dependent on what other people think of them.
To get that, we have to understand the original design. Before all this internal corruption, what was the human system supposed to produce?
The sources point to three key outputs, three legs of a stool that keep everything stable. First, security.
Meaning?
Perfect confidence in who you are and what your future holds. No existential anxiety, no need to hoard or scheme or steal to feel safe.
So you can't be corrupted by fear of not having enough.
Exactly. The second is prosperity. This means functioning in creative dominion, work that is meaningful, not just toil, comprehensive abundance.
And the third,
Rest. Operating from a place of settledness. No constant striving, no anxiety-driven hustle.
and when that core code was corrupted, what happened to those outputs?
It was a systemic catastrophe. Security was replaced by shame and fear. Prosperity was replaced by frustration and toil. And rest was replaced by restlessness and constant striving. The whole internal system got severed from its power source.
Which means our ability to manage things, to be responsible, it's always going to have glitches.
Serious glitches. And this leads us right into why external fixes are just not enough. We are constantly trying to legislate our way out of character problems.
A new law, a new policy.
And the sources are clear. Those external frames can never, ever compensate for internal dysfunction.
Let's talk about that. History seems to prove this point, right? Authoritarian regimes are the ultimate test of external control.
The perfect example. They can force the appearance of order. The trains run on time, production targets get met.
But it's all based on what?
Purely external coercion. Fear, surveillance, punishment.
The compliance is based on fear, not on conviction.
That is the critical difference. The moment that coercive power is gone, like we saw with the Soviet Union, the whole system just collapses.
Because no one ever actually bought into it.
Nobody was internally aligned with the values. They just feared the consequences of breaking the rules. True conviction says, I know this is the right thing to do. Coercion just asks, will I get caught?
Okay, but hold on. Let's bring this to today. We have plenty of societies that look really orderly and prosperous, wealthy nations, strong rule of law. If external systems are so weak, why do they seem to function so well?
That's the hidden crisis the research points to. Functional exteriors hiding deeply broken interiors.
The paradox.
A huge one. And we see the proof everywhere. Epidemics of mental illness, addiction, anxiety, suicide, in the very places where material needs are more than met.
So the system works, but the people in it are breaking.
Exactly. It's proof that external order without internal health creates a life of performance without purpose, success without any satisfaction.
The sources have some really chilling examples of this. They bring up karoshi.
The Japanese concept of death from overwork.
Yeah.
It's a devastating example. You have an economic system that functions with incredible world-class precision, but what's driving the individual?
The internal system.
And it's running on a corrupted code of shame, social pressure, and a deep fear of dishonor. The internal structure simply cannot handle the external load. It leads to literal collapse, death.
Or, the opioid crisis in the West.
Another perfect example, material abundance is at an all-time high, but people are seeking oblivion. Why? Because all that stuff, it just can't fill an internal emptiness.
It reframes how we should even think about corruption.
We just call it greed. But that's so superficial.
It's a symptom?
It's a byproduct of a deep, deep internal insecurity. The official taking a bribe isn't just greedy. They fundamentally don't trust the system or their own future.
Yeah, their corruption is a messed up way of trying to find security.
It's a desperate, illegitimate attempt to generate the security they were designed to have from the start.
That changes everything. It means more laws and punishments, while you might need them, will never solve the problem.
Never. Because they're treating the symptom, the greed, not the root cause.
And insecurity.
You can't legislate away anxiety. You have to transform the source of it.
So if the issue is internal, what happens when that system hits its limit? I mean, the sources are brutally honest here. They basically accept that old saying, every man has his price.
And it's not meant to be cynical. It's just systemic realism.
Meaning?
Self-generated morality. Willpower. It's a finite resource. It runs out. It depletes under pressure.
And everyone has a pressure point.
Everyone has a unique pressure point. For one person, it's financial desperation. For another, it's the need for prestige. For another, something else. When that point is reached, the internal system collapses. The structure just wasn't strong enough for the load.
You see this play out over and over again in history, even with really strong moral figures.
Think about Solomon. The sources bring him up. He had incredible wisdom, but his system collapsed under the weight of unchecked desire.
And it corrupted his entire kingdom.
His external position was huge, but his internal discipline was compromised.
Or Samson, all that external strength.
Legendary strength. But his internal discipline, especially around relationships, was incredibly weak. His greatest external asset couldn't save him from his internal blind spots.
So these aren't just stories of bad people, but of systems failing under stress.
Yes. Systems that weren't connected to a sufficient power source. So we want to diagnose this correctly. We need a dual perspective. You start with the obvious, the natural material,
The observable failures.
the hospital without supplies, the official demanding a bribe. That's the easy part.
But the second perspective, the spiritual discerning one, that's harder.
It is. It requires you to look at systems that seem to be working perfectly on the outside. They're profitable, efficient, orderly, but are deeply compromised ethically or spiritually.
Like what?
A hugely profitable company that exploits its workers. A military unit that wins every battle but is driven by pride and cruelty. You have to ask, what values are driving this success? What's the cost to people's character?
So system failure starts inside the individual, then fixing it has to start there too. It has to build from the inside out.
It's the only way to build something that lasts. You start with the individual system, that's the fundamental unit.
Then the family.
The family system, where values are transferred. Then that scales up to the community system, and only then do you get a healthy societal system. The health of each level depends entirely on the level beneath it.
Okay, so this profound transformation, this redemption, how does it systemically rebuild a person? What does it actually fix?
It does three critical things. First, identity restoration. It settles the question of who you are, which removes that deep insecurity that drives people to compromise.
It builds that unshakable foundation.
It stops you from needing money or approval to feel valuable. Second, nature transformation. This is the core code reset. It literally changes what you are, so that integrity becomes your default setting, not just a behavior you're trying to force.
And the third piece.
Power for sustainable function. This is crucial. It connects the individual to a resource greater than their own finite willpower. It's like taking a laptop that keeps running out of battery and plugging it into an infinite power source. It can handle any load without crashing.
That feels like the difference between just trying harder and actually being changed.
That's why the sources talk about spiritual formation as being true systemic maintenance.
It's not just behavior modification.
No, that's just clicking the icon for a corrupted program over and over, hoping it won't crash this time. This is about actually fixing the code underneath.
So to bring this all home for you, the listener, we started with massive institutional failure.
Yeah.
And the conclusion from this research is pretty stark. If we want real, sustainable societal change,
Justice, integrity, all of it.
we have to start with the internal transformation of individuals.
All the external reforms, the new laws, the audits, they're necessary, but they are, at best, temporary scaffolding.
They just buy us time.
They buy us time while the real difficult work of building character and internal integrity happens. The research is clear. The future doesn't depend primarily on the next political movement or economic policy. It depends on whether individuals will allow their internal systems to be completely rebuilt.
So that security, prosperity, and rest can flow again.
That's the goal.
Which leaves us with a pretty serious challenge. We've spent this deep dive diagnosing system collapse from the inside out. So the final thought for you to take away is this. What metrics are you using to assess the health of your own internal system? Are you just measuring external performance, how good you look? Or are you measuring systemic integrity, the actual resilience and transformation of your character? That's the difference between temporary function and true, lasting stability. We hope this deep dive was valuable.